welcome back to the development story behind the Unreal generation of Snapshots Battle Royale, my long-standing passion project built in the Fortnite ecosystem. Essentially, my own Fortnite, almost like a fan fiction. Previously, I discussed the conception and development of the first 3 seasons of Venture 2. And likewise, today we're rewinding through the second half of 2025 for the second trilogy of seasons. However, our good friend the Core Knights Tell Us has some environmental context to provide before we can jump in, for the end of Season 3 in August brought our first ever narrative live event, Lunar Shift. Lunar Shift saw Faulty Frontier transformed into one big battery, with the kinetic energy from the crystalline rocks strewn about being used to power up Talus's kinetic relocator. This big beefy device ripped a hole in the fabric of reality and pulled Talus's homeworld of the kinetic moon to the island, with the intent of replacing the island as we know it. However, right as his plan was reaching its crux, he was sabotaged, a strike from beyond our reality, powering down the device and forcing Talus to put it into overdrive, drawing excess power out of the kinetic ore and sending out a giant wave that partially completed his mission, although the power surge did fracture the kinetic moon. This is my first in-game story live event, and I had a lot of fun putting this together over the span of about 4 days. I had to really get a handle on the cinematic sequencing tool and visual effects through Niagara, but watching it come together over time was really cool. With the device destroyed and Talus defeated for now, a more natural scientific problem arises. See, the kinetic moon sitting so close to the island has caused the tides to rise, resulting in a flood. See, there's real-world science here. The moon does affect the rising and lowering of the tide IRL. In fact, it's the whole reason the tide even changes at all. I've wanted to do a flood-based season for a long time. It just seemed like something that would be really fun to make, but it wasn't really possible until UEFN came out, and then I didn't really have a reason to do it, but with the moon, well, it just made sense. That brings us into Venture 2 Season 4, High Tide. Season 4 acts as a sort of buffer season in between the hugely important big map change lore-based seasons. As such, the main map changes here are just debris or ensured responses to the rising tide. The whole season has a unique galactic skybox with the fractured kinetic moon on the horizon, which is a super awesome visual that I really love. The main location here is Camp Coral, an Atlantean town found in the basin where Faulty Frontier previously sat, and where the remains of Talus's device can be found. There's also the pawn shop loot boat, Peely's Neo banana stand next to the casino, a water pumping station briefly taking over the logjam mill, and the monster bones being fully exposed by the rising tide. I think my favorite innovation from this season is in the gameplay, as all players have a built-in surfboard they can activate at any moment to surf the waves with fun. Much more interesting than swimming, right? Also, if you're wondering just why is Mr. Jimothy Beast on the key art, we did something pretty cool this season. We actually donated all of the revenue from snapshots made throughout the launch month of August to Mr. Beast's Team Waters campaign to provide clean water to those who may not have access to it. Also, having Mr. Beast in the key art is really funny. The rest of the island has a lot of trash islands, but for the most part it's pretty similar. But we had a lot of fun coming up on aquatic puns on previous POI names, such as Marine Meadows, Floating Favela, Potion Pond, that's not a pond, and Aquatic Abodes. There's also a neat reference to my friends over at Starfall here, if you know, you know. Towards the end of the season, as the water receded and life went back to normal, a mysterious storm of dust appeared on the horizon. Or is that sand? Then, when a warship emerged and crashed straight into the western side of the island, we were thrust straight into Venture 2 Season 5 Outlaws kicked off in October, with the anti-hero Jones making his impact known. You may notice this giant sand pit in the southwest. This new biome is the Western Wilds, an arid wasteland inspired by the tales of the old American West. This is probably the most we've changed one area of the map in one go so far. Designing a desert was a really unique challenge, but there's a lot of detail in here to make sure it doesn't feel bland and empty. Perhaps my favorite part of this biome is the Trail of Destruction location left by Jones's battleship, which can be found beached at Wasted Warship. This entire location is off-grid due to its predicament, which I thought made for an interesting fighting dynamic. Timber Treeway bridges the gap between the old land and the new. This is one of my favorite locations. There's some real Donkey Kong vibes just running through here and exploring. There's also a slightly swampy marshlands just at the north bit, which has a unique vibe. I like this little area. Shiny Stilts is the most western drop spot here, but it's got a pretty unique look to it, which I really like. Plus, of course, the solid gold nature about, because, well, you can't have a Wild West without a gold rush, right? This melting golden sand paint was made by complete accident. I was just trying to make regular sand, but I really liked how it turned out, so I scattered it across the biome, and that's how the gold rush mechanic was born. The butter barn can be found deeper into the desert. It's pretty much identical to the Fortnite location. This is pretty much just here because I pledged to my friend of 10 years that I'd put our main drop spot into Snapshots someday, and this turned out to be the right moment. The rest of the desert is full of interesting little landmarks like California-style truck stops, a more traditional western town buried under sand, some cargo wreckage, and plenty of relics of what was once here. My favorite landmark is Jaggy Junk, the sister junkyards to Janky Junk in the north. Just like her sister's reference to Lethal Company, Jaggy has a reference to one of my favorite Friends Gem games, Repo, buried in the rubble. Floral Favela can be found with a slight desert makeover, as can Potion Port. The desert is really split into two sub-biomes, the hotter mesa and the more traditional sandy dunes. I applied this checkerboard paint effect to a lot of the border area, which I really like. It's just a stylistic decision to give it a unique look, but it also makes for a small tribute to Green Hill Zone from Sonic the Hedgehog. Elsewhere, the area where Saucy Strip, Faulty Frontier, and Camp Coral once sat finally gets a break with this quaint little tree farm landmark I really like, called Evergreen Grove. And of course, there are some small references dotted across the map. Over in Mossy Meadows, you can find this setup referencing my adventures as the morally ambiguous British beatboxing jongleur in Fortnite's Delulu mode. By the Duck Islands, the logo for my friend Nearly's Battle Royale, Syndicate, can be found built out with rocks. And foreshadowing our second IP collab in this season with K-pop Demon Hunters, statues of Derpy the Tiger can be found across the map, and the Huntrix plane has crash landed just north of Mossy Meadows. The main technical upgrade this season is the addition of volumetric storm clouds that build over time and dynamically interact with the world. These were made by Alleyjacks, and they look super good. Also, this lighthouse finally actually does its job. The first content update for Outlaws added a creator collab I've been wanting to do for a long time. Actually, two. We crossed over the worlds of Bite-Sized Battlegrounds by DuPXD and Speedy Edits by Galaxguz with Lightning Studios, a merger of the Lightning Mall from Speedy Edits and Spectrum Studios from Bite-Sized. I'm a big fan of Lightning Studios. There are so many tiny details packed into this space. You can drop here 10 times and still find something new, and yet it's also packed into such a tight space. I love it. With Halloween coming up too, this year brought Frightmare's Hades Rising, with Slappy Stacks temporarily transformed into Styx Stacks, adding the really fun Styx dash effects to the game, and Grim Gables also appearing near the Tasteland because, you know, why not? Then, as the season went on, something strange happened at Loot Lake. First, the Genesis crystals strewn about here started to glow with a strange energy. Then a construct appeared, a makeshift rift gate, powered by a refined gold called Nitro and feeding off the energy of the round stone. And that leads us into... The end of Season 5 brought another live event, Doomsday, where Jones activated his Nitro Rift Gate and triangulated its power on finding his lost love, Sloane. You see, at the end of the Venture 1 story in Fortnite Creative 1.0, Sloane sacrificed herself to give her essence to help rebuild the island, but Jones always believed that she was still out there. He just had to find her. Unfortunately, before he can get a good hold, none other than the Godmaker, an old, friend from the Venture 1 era, steps forth and starts beating the crunk out of Jones. Jones panics and uses his portal gun to transform them both, growing to tremendous sizes. The Godmaker obliterates Floral Favela, and the two engage in a nitro-fueled kaiju battle. There's some cooler moments in here, like Jones getting desperate and throwing the portal gun at Godmaker, or summoning a rift to literally smite him. There's also half the map getting absolutely blazed out. Setting up the animations was by far the hardest part of creating this event. They're all directly ported imported from an official Epic event, but converting them to work with these character models and sequencing them took a fair bit of work. Also, if I remove the fade to white at the end, Jones's character model does this, which we found pretty funny. There's a surprising amount of extra work in here which you wouldn't notice at first, from lining up sound effects and visual effects, to making sure everything is properly visible from the player's perspective. But I had a ton of fun playing around with all the cool stuff that's in here, and I'm really proud of how Doomsday turned out. In the end, the Godmaker is defeated, and Jones leaves through the Rift Gates to reunite with his lost love. Unfortunately to those of us still on the island, the damage has been done, and the destruction of the Western Wilds and all of Jones's nitro refineries has resulted in a nuclear winter, bringing on a great frost known as the Big Chill. My philosophy behind these live events and making them feel like a natural progression of the game world is to have something a little unrealistic happen, a big exciting spectacle that's fun to watch, but the fallout that arises has real world logic to it. Rising tides, nuclear winters, etc. That brings us to Venture 2 Season 6, Big Chill, which was released in December, on Christmas Eve in fact. Big Chill is a season idea I have wanted to do for an incredibly long time, so when it finally came time to make this happen, I really threw myself into it. For a long time it had the working title of Those Who Snow, and honestly, I should have kept that, that's pretty funny. Big Chill really lives up to its name though, as there are 3 separate snow biomes split across the map here. However, the main one is the brand new Boreal Pines Forest biome. The core new POI here is Boreal Burbs, a wintry Scandinavian-style town that positively oozes festive charm out of every corner. Smack dab in the middle of the Boreal Pines is the Snowed Inn, which sits atop a hill overlooking an icy lake. This whole area is super awesome. I'm incredibly proud of how the terrain work came out especially, and nearly did a great job designing the Snowed Inn. I like this room where everything's like floating and haunted for no reason. Also, if you explore that ice lake, you might just find some remnants of floral favela. Gone, but not forgotten. A new lumberyard has been constructed in the place once occupied by Flopper Pond, We Still Miss You, and nearby a souped up version of the Frostfest cabin from Snapshots Venture 1 Season 7 can be found upon a chunk of ice. Potion Port has been hit hard by the snow, with a lot of shipping containers now encased in the ice. However, the decorations are out in full force here, and that snowman that has been sitting in a container since after hours now has some friends to play with. Just east of the Boreal Pines sits Tilted Tracks, a grand city with an even grander train station. Some of the buildings here are actually the work of the Snapshots community, submitted as part of a contest I ran back in 2023 to contribute to a future season. This one references the Super Mario Bros. Movie, here just in time for the sequel. There's also this bird camera crew setup, a little nod to the dearly departed bird gas station that appeared in a Cypher PK video but was shortly after destroyed by Jones's warship. Wait a second, back up past Jakus. Did you say train station? Oh yes I did. If you hadn't noticed, there's now a train line running around the entire island. Some pretty hefty infrastructure and terrain changes needed to be made in parts, with the Cinder Castle becoming a train station and a train tunnel near the middle of the map. There's a lot of stone bridges too, especially overlooking the snow biome, which can make for some really cool views. The train itself is an addition that I am super excited about. It took quite a while to make this work, and even then it can be, a little buggy at the best of times, but it's a really cool addition to the world and I'm proud of how it turned out. However, a cool addition is that this railway actually doubles as a grind rail, so you can speed along it, just like in Mario Kart World. Following Doomsday, Loot Lake has been transformed into Pine Point, a mystical woodland grove with some real Gravity Falls vibes. Between the treehouses you can find the Genesis core exposed, which I'm sure is completely fine. That's not something to worry about, right? In the north, another patch of fresh snow can be found. This place is home to Foxy Fjord, a beautiful European-style town home to the Grand Glacier Hotel, a cheese shop, that's that Mi Espresso, and its own little train station. The Gilded Gambit has also gained some decorations for the winter, including holiday lights you can grind along. The third and final patch of snowfall can be found running along the eastern side of the map. The new POI in this area is Cookie Crossing, a small town made entirely of gingerbread and inhabited by merry munchkins. There are loads of gummy drop buttons, presents, and even one secret Halloween lover being arrested for treason against the gingerbread people. How dastardly. Just north of that, Mossy becomes merry with plenty of festive decor, and the Tasteland even has an icy makeover. In fact, all of these snow biomes have a lot of ice chunks poking about, really adding a new layer of verticality to a lot of these areas. If you look out to the ocean, you'll see huge chunks of ice surrounding the entire map, really adding to the chilly vibe. What is this, some kind of big chill? Small Arctic outposts have cropped up across the whole map. They seem to be searching for something. Only time will tell what they're looking for, but so far all they've found is a great big clam, a species of mollusk native to this island. And of course there are the references. If you talk to this spooky green peleid boreal burbs, his dialogue will reference the video game No I'm Not a Human, which I played a lot during the development of Outlaws. And if you explore the forest near Potion Port, you may stumble across his small circus tent with some colourful characters the watchers of a certain indie animated YouTube show might recognise. And finally, a little full circle moment here, with the Temperate Island shack from Fortnite Creative on this here hill. We've also got some fresh technical upgrades this season with a beautiful new skybox that adds a totally different ambient vibe for the map, perfect for the winter season. Not only that, but the waterfalls look a lot nicer, and all of the snowy areas have local fog volumes that dynamically change over time. Plus, the heads-up display has been overhauled with an improved design, alongside new UI designs for all of the in-game pop-ups like supply drops and reboots disabling. Big Chill is one of the biggest seasons we've ever put together, but I'm incredibly happy with how it came out. I really wanted this to be a special Christmas experience for Snapshots, one to feel all nostalgic and warm and fuzzy for in the years to come. I'd like to again express my greatest appreciation for the incredibly talented people who have contributed so much to this project. I'd like to extend my appreciation to a couple of incredibly talented asset porters, Eve and Dog, whose work have been instrumental to a lot of the visuals seen in my live events. These guys are so talented. Genuinely, show them your love and check out their stuff. These 3 seasons were some of the most stressful and challenging to make in a lot of ways, thanks to UEFN being itself, but I'm really happy with where we closed out on in 2025, which was not only the first full year of Snapshots in Unreal, but also the first full 365 days of content since Snapshots launched in 2022. There's still stuff to come that I think is pretty super, and it might just make you flip out, so please look forward to that. But for now,
a new preview of Minecraft, which used to be called Snapshots.